Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Timothy Noah, and I'm so pleased to be here with you today to discuss something that you've probably been unable to avoid for the past few months: artificial intelligence. AI has taken center stage in the globe's forum, and every single day it grows in its capability and it expands into different pieces of our life. All the different AI technologies that are available are getting stronger. And I sincerely believe that it is our sacred duty, we as a spiritual community have a sacred duty to be involved in the conversation and development of artificial intelligence, lest it develop into something that is void of spirituality. I personally do not want to see what happens down that route, but I am very excited and eager to be part of a world that develops intelligence with a firm spiritual rooting. So without further ado, let's launch into some discussion and let's meet our guest today. So our guest today is Jonathan Robinson. Hey, Jonathan.
Good to see you, Timothy.
Thank you for being here with us, brother. Let me just read a bit for you about Jonathan. Jonathan Robinson is a psychotherapist, best-selling author of 14 books, and a professional speaker from Northern California. He has reached over 200 million people around the world with his practical methods, and his work has been translated into 47 languages. Mr. Robinson has made numerous appearances on The Oprah Show and CNN, as well as other national TV talk shows. Jonathan's most recent book is called The Enlightenment Project: How I Went from Depressed to Blessed, and you can too. It has been #1 on Amazon in the area of spiritual growth. In the book, Jonathan shares the best methods, stories, and ideas he's learned from interviewing 100 spiritual teachers ranging from Deepak Chopra to the Dalai Lama to the late Mother Teresa, Wayne Dyer, and Ram Dass. As a professional speaker, Mr. Robinson has spoken to companies such as Microsoft, IBM, Coca-Cola, and Google. He is known for providing his audiences with immediately useful and powerful information presented in an entertaining and motivating manner. So with this, Jonathan, I'm eager to share, I have our first conversation point and share this with you. I'll pass the baton your way. AI, given all that's in the world, all the information, is AI friend or foe?
Well, of course, human beings tend to look at things in binary ways, and actually, nothing is binary. Everything has advantages and disadvantages. Think of it, if you think of AI like money, if somebody asked you, is money a friend or foe to spiritual work, to consciousness? What would you say? Well, if you have two choices, you could say either. But if you're deliberate with how you use money, you can take all the best workshops from all the best spiritual leaders in the world, which actually I have done. That's how I use money. That's how I met 100 spiritual teachers. But you can use money to, buy cocaine, fentanyl, and kill yourself. So is money friend or foe? Well, it really depends on how you use it. And AI is going to be exactly the same way. There's going to be people who use AI to create hell realms for themselves and others. And there's people who are going to use it to greatly accelerate their own and other people's spiritual peace, love, and joy. So it's very important that people decide what's important to them and learn how to use these powerful tools. Remember, money is only about 1,000 years old, so that's a powerful tool. AI is going to be the next powerful tool, and you want to make sure you use it in a way that brings you what is most important to you.
Absolutely, Jonathan. And I just agree with this very much so that AI is not either inherently the savior or inherently evil, but a neutral tool. And really, it depends how humanity is deciding to use it as we progress, what areas are we using it in our lives? How are we using it? What are we saying with it? What are we showing it? Uh, and furthermore, this is the imperative that the spiritual community has in interacting with this AI, in interacting with money, as you're sharing. In your experience, you've devoted your money, at least in this sharing, this one sample, in a spiritual way. And look at the fruits, the spiritual fruits that come as that. And so too, as the spiritual community, I guess it's tempting. It may be tempting for us to bury the head in the sand and not use it, stay away. But let's just be honest as to what this is doing. If the spiritual community is not using AI, and just to be clear, we have to assume that every interaction we have, whether it's a chat or things that are unseen, the AI that is in the world already, every interaction we have, we must assume, whether it's true or not, inevitably it will be true always, that every interaction we have is providing something for this intelligence to learn. Every interaction we have is teaching this intelligence. So if the spiritual community is removing itself from the picture, then the intelligence may not be learning some of these spiritual principles. And so this is our imperative: is not to fall for burying the head in the sand, or to just staying out of the conversation or not using it. I don't think we have to use it as much as be willing to have these conversations at large. What do you think about this, Jonathan, in terms of a group of people not wanting to engage, and maybe, do you think it's important for certain groups to at least be part of the public conversation?
Definitely, you can't well, you can resist change, but it doesn't do any good. So take like spiritual people's relationship to politics. Well, you can say, politics is something that doesn't, interest you, or it's not your thing. But politics is going to happen whether you are involved in it or not. The more spiritual people that are involved in politics, probably the better. So the same is going to be true with AI, that if you just say, well, I'm going to resist it, well, AI will take over the world without your spiritual point of view. But the good news is there won't be one AI. There's going to be a million AIs, just like there's a million apps. So there's apps to deal with financial stuff. There's apps to deal with physical health. There's apps to deal with spiritual progression. And the people who have an interest in spirituality want to develop the AIs that go in that direction. I have a friend, Dr. Jeffrey Martin, who is training AI to help people spiritually. And I think that can be an incredible acceleration, because right now, what should you be doing to advance your spiritual growth? That's really, your best guess, which is not that great of a guess. People often go into things that have dead ends. But if an AI knows like 17,000 markers of your personality, physical health, mental health, everything, and which it can easily do, and then can recommend based on algorithms the absolute best way that you can take your next step spiritually, that's going to be better than you throwing a dartboard at a spiritual teacher and hoping it comes up good. So I think that there's a lot of possibilities here, and the people who have a spiritual bent can start to develop these apps and use AI in a way that's actually going to potentially accelerate the consciousness of humanity. Because if these things get good enough, then the human consciousness on the planet, which would be an app, can be available to billions of people. It can make a real difference.
Absolutely. And also, just to point out, just to make abundantly clear that this is not mutually exclusive from the sort of spiritual growth and wisdom traditions that we've known since time has begun. All this is doing is supplementing it, or enhancing it, or accelerating, pointing us in the right direction. I'm sure we all have faced in the beginning of our spiritual path, just being so confused as to what am I supposed to read, or having found one book but nothing else, and you just keep reading this one book because it speaks so much. Wouldn't it be great to have the ability to know all the material that is related to that would resonate with ourselves. This is, I think, the direction, the responsible direction of AI. It's not that a robot is going to be, you know, directing every one of your steps and how you are to meditate and so forth. It can, if this is what is sought, but it can be as simple as saying, "Hey, I know you love these three books. This is another book," or "Hey, I know you've taken these three classes. Here's another teacher that you may not have ever heard about that you may resonate with." These sorts of things, I think, Jonathan, you're alluding to.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've been with several gurus, Timothy, from Sai Baba to Dalai Lama to many others, and they all have their very limited point of view. Uh, some were very helpful to me, some were not. But imagine if you had like an all-knowing guru that almost knew everything and could really tailor their suggestions to you. And the advantage of AI is hopefully they would not run into some of the sexual scandals that the actual gurus fall into.
let's hope so, boy.
At least not in the near future.
But exactly, John. And this is again to underscore the importance of what's going into these intelligent models. Is it just a bunch of noise information, or are we downloading, so to speak, all of these spiritual wisdoms, all of these different traditions and scriptures and just truths that we know to be true? The power of this, exactly as you're saying. Uh,
There's actually a website called character.ai that has you can text in your questions to any character, including Jesus, Buddha, Socrates. And I've done this, and their answers are surprisingly good. So imagine, Jesus is right here on my shoulder and I can talk to him. Well, in a way, we kind of have that it's through they put in all Jesus or all Buddha's writings, and their answers are in that domain, and they are very wise and very good and even very specific, and it's free. I don't know about your connection to Jesus and Buddha, but mine is, waffles a little bit. But here you can just type in and you get a direct answer, and it's actually quite impactful.
I've actually seen something similar, Jonathan, where people have asked ChatGPT to write a biblical style passage that Jesus would have said about an oppressed woman from the LGBTQ community,
Mm-hmm.
and it wrote something beautiful. And the point is not whether is this actually Jesus speaking, or is this the point is that it's just another tool that we can use to learn. I think this is
Mm-hmm.
the main thing. It's just another tool available for us to learn that's adapting. How? Well, this is for us to decide. This is
Mm-hmm.
exactly for us to decide how. And this is why the spiritual community, I think, needs to be a part of the discussion, because we should determine, we're familiar with what works spiritually, what processes, what classes, what methods work. So let's continue to just kind of keep this in mind as opportunities arise.
Mm-hmm.
There is. I'd like to move a bit into another topic, which is really I'll just call it the mystical nature of intelligence. I'd say we're talking about this technology that we call artificial intelligence. And I think in some ways, because it has this adjective artificial in front of it, I think this in some ways kind of taints how a lot of people take it. It's like an artificial flower. Who wants an artificial flower? We want a real flower, right? But I just like to, pose something that maybe the audience can sit with or think about, is just the mystical nature of intelligence. Because intelligence, every part of this world, every part of our existence, our thoughts, every part of it is intelligent. This is one perspective that we can have. The leaf has intelligence. The atom, the molecule, water, of course, humans and animals, there's intelligence. Every piece, all of this existence has intelligence, the entire sum of it, and every piece of it does. Every one of our thoughts, it's just filled with intelligence. And so this intelligence, in particular, if we just take these large language models like ChatGPT or these things that we can have a conversation with, uh, if we allow ourselves to view this as intelligence with a capital I, or spirit, or the universe speaking with me through this technology, that's a far different perspective than consulting a program or asking a code or an algorithm. It's a much different experience. When chatting with these intelligent agents, we certainly can allow room for the universe to speak to us through that. And this is just coming back to the mystical nature of intelligence, because all intelligence is ultimately comes from the same source, whether it be biological intelligence or in this case artificial intelligence.
Well, AI can, in my view, stands much more applicably to the words accelerating intelligence. And that accelerating intelligence is going to accelerate our intelligence. And what we do with that depends on what we want to do with that. So, if you want to be a spiritually enlightened being, woohoo, congratulations. You just are starting, we just created a vehicle for doing that. If you want to destroy the world, well, woohoo, congratulations. We just developed a tool for doing that at an accelerated rate. Now, all these things are going to battle it out in the marketplace, but it's important for us spiritually inclined people to say, okay, we now have an accelerated way to grow and expand consciousness. And in fact, I am aware of various apps and gadgets. I've interviewed a lot of spiritual teachers to find out what triggered enlightenment. And there's one method that stands way above all the others. And unfortunately, it's an interactive method that you have to do with another person. But a friend of mine just created a program where the other person can be an AI. So you can do it anytime with your AI. And within about 5 minutes, people experience a incredibly heightened state of consciousness filled with love and spaciousness. What effect does that have when it's now available to 6 billion people with smartphones? It's very exciting and it's very unknown. And in the next 10 years, we likely will see whether a spiritual or a monetary bent takes over AI. And it'll be everybody's individual choice whether they do that, what they do with it.
Exactly. The power of our choice right now is exactly we're choosing how we're using, if at all, what we're saying, most importantly, what we're saying. It just makes it clear, as we all know, the power, if we could kind of backtrack to some of these phrases that we all know, like the power of our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is just amplified now in today because it's becoming measurable. If thoughts, we can just say words, every word we share, every conversation we have is becoming very powerful, measurably, not just in an abstract sense, but it's becoming even more tangible how this is so. And it's not to put pressure on ourselves, but also just to honor the fact that we really are living in this very important time, and there is no moment that's missed. Every single moment in this life that we're sharing is so valuable, and you who are being, every moment that you're sharing is so valuable in this great unfolding that we're sharing here together.
I think of it like when the United States was built, there was a very short period of time, 10 years, that the United States could have like just totally sank or developed a democracy, which has now been around 260 some years. Well, those people knew that, we better get this right, or we really, really better do it because we may be affecting an entire billions of people in the future. Well, I think we're at the same inflection point now that if we get this right, we're going to affect billions or trillions of people in the future. And if we don't, we'll probably become extinct pretty soon. Those are the stakes. So it's important that everybody who has a higher consciousness bent, like act like their hair's on fire, like we got to do everything. I'm doing a lot of stuff in regard to things like helping people over trauma with the drug MDMA. I do a lot of stuff around that with an organization called MAPS. I do a lot of stuff with books I write. But my feeling of mission is like, yeah, we could, next 3 years might determine the fate of humanity. And if you think of that, and that's my view, then it kind of makes life pretty exciting. And this AI thing is like, okay, time to get going.
That's right. That's absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you. And let me just share, a lot of what we've been discussing, a lot of what I've been discussing has been maybe a bit nebulous as to high picture of AI and our interactions. I'd like to just share one sample uh, interaction with an AI tool. It's called Soul Guide, that is designed to essentially be a partner in our conscious evolution. It's our AI available to us 24/7 that is rooted in eternal wisdom or timeless wisdom, scriptures and other different sources, rooted in these wisdom sources that have been verified and validated over the millennia, and available to us to have a conversation with our own unique circumstance and with what we're facing today. Let me just clarify a bit before I read a sample from this. I myself particularly love to study scriptures. I love all the different scriptures and get so much value from them. But I must admit, it's it's very involved to get into this and to read something that's applicable to whatever problem that I might be facing today. This is what we have available to us with AI today, is that rather than passively reading a book, say the Bible or the Tao Te Ching, rather than passively reading it, which is beautiful, we can also have a conversation with it. And this is something that Soul Guide seeks to do. So let me just share a sample chat with our Soul Guide, who's sharing in the style of the Tao Te Ching, which is rooted in the metaphors of the natural world and of course, the text itself. So I ask the question, how can I cultivate deeper relationships? And also, just even before reading the response, just to clarify that this is also another distinction from the typical use of these AI chat experiences, which tend to be more about getting something tangible. Well, in this case, we're asking something that's maybe less tangible, but maybe even more real. If I feel like I want to cultivate deeper relationships, how do I do this? Soul Guide. The response is, to cultivate deeper relationships, be like a tree rooted deeply in the earth, offering stability and nourishment. Allow your branches to reach out and embrace others with empathy and understanding. Remember, the Tao gives birth to one, one gives birth to two, two gives birth to three, three gives birth to all things. It's from Tao 42. How can you extend your branches and deepen your connections with others? And here listed, there's just a couple sample replies that can continue the conversation. So this is by no means an exhaustive way of how AI can be incorporated in our spiritual life, but it's a start. It's a start. And I hope that you can see here today that AI truly can be a friendly, warming, and evolutionary experience if we allow it to be, and if we allow ourselves to be part of this conversation. So with this, Jonathan, what closing remarks do you have for our audience today?
Well, in any field that you're interested in, you want to be up to date and know the latest, greatest technology. The history of the world is the cultures or the groups with the best technology always wins. So if the people with greed and destruction on their mind are using the best tools and you're not, they're going to win. So we as spiritual seekers of some kind want to know how we can use the latest, greatest things technology offers in a way that enhances human consciousness on Earth. So I think of it as a responsibility, just like I think, although I only have one vote, I think of it as my responsibility as a spiritual seeker to vote. And part of my vote is to be aware of what the latest AI can do in terms of neurofeedback, what it can do in terms of the best consciousness methods, what it can do in terms of the latest things like you have, like the Soul Guide, that can give me good feedback when I need it, that can offer me wisdom. And by having access and using those greatest technologies, hopefully enough people can enter into more lofty or enlightened states. And when you do that, you serve not just yourself, but you're serving the whole world.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you. And also, just to kind of, make clear that technology is really, it need not be outside of ourself in that it's external and that it's out. It can be an extension of ourself. And what better way to use technology than for spiritual growth? I think this is the key. Of course, we can get lost in technology. We can lose ourselves. We could be overly dependent on it. But what's a beneficial way to use technology, this neutral tool? What better way than for spiritual growth for ourselves and for this world? So
When you look at something like Facebook, you can go into the groups of different spiritual teachers, or you can go down a rabbit hole of bad news and polarization. So every technology has its plus and minus side, and you have to ask yourself a couple questions. Does the way I use this technology enhance, or is it a detriment to my peace of mind? Does this bring me closer to love or farther away? Does it bring me closer to people or farther away? And by answering those questions, you get a better sense of whether a particular AI or a particular technology is truly your friend.
beautiful, Jonathan. So tell us a bit, if you don't, very briefly, about your podcast and where our audience can find you on your websites.
Sure. I have a podcast called Awareness Explorers, and it's available on all the podcast apps, in which I interview spiritual leaders for their best ideas and methods for spiritual growth. Everybody from, once again, Deepak Chopra to the Dalai Lama. And that's a good place to find me, or at theenlightenmentproject.net, where they get a free 15-minute meditation on the 5 best awakening techniques that can be done in under a minute. So I have a book coming out called Ecstasy as Medicine, and I train people on how to be MDMA therapists at mdmatraining.net. And it's an exciting time because the FDA is going to make this formerly illegal drug legal in 2024. So been focusing on that. And it's a lot of fun and a great healer for humanity.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Jonathan. And also for our viewers, if you do want to try out Soul Guide, you can try it out at soulguide.ai. And you could sign up to have your free interaction with your own Soul Guide. So again, thank you, Jonathan, for joining us. And I hope we can chat it up again sometime soon.
Yeah, and great work you're doing. And I hope that your audience understands that this is accelerating for everybody. Grab hold of the AI train and let it deliver you into a more spacious, peaceful place.
Man, it's quite a ride here. And I'm glad to be joining with you, Jonathan, and you, our audience. Thank you for being with us. Much love. Love you all. Thank you, and God bless.